if you're looking to hit your first dunk ever, whether it's off dribble, whether it's off lob, 1 foot, 2 foot, here's a step by step breakdown on exactly how to do this while avoiding all the bullshit advice you see online. This is how you actually see results and actually start jumping higher and hitting your first dunk. So let's jump into it. The first step, it's like anything. If you're trying to get better at shooting a basketball, what do? You shoot more. It's a skill. With jumping, you need to ensure you're practicing the skill enough. Time and time again, we see so many athletes, they're trying to hit their first dunk. And if you're trying to hit your first dunk, you're lacking the skills more often than not to do this, how to finish, how to flick your wrist down, your fingers down correctly so you're not back rimming it or missing the rim. Another common mistake we see is grabbing the rim too much, and how to dribble up correctly or how to lob the ball correctly. So jumping into the technique of things, Tom, if someone wanted to dunk off dribble for the first time and hit a one-hander off dribble for the first time, how do they do this?
It almost is the first step you need to do is making sure that you're actually touching high enough. Now, if you're touching 10-1, I hate to say it, you definitely can't dunk off dribble. I was gonna say probably, but you definitely can't dunk off dribble. I'd say you probably need at minimum 10'6". So that's like around your wrist height to be able to dunk off the dribble. And that's if you're like super efficient. Now I'd say getting your first dribble dunk off 1 foot is a little bit easier than 2 foot, just because of the general motion and the way you can keep it in your hand a little bit easier off the 1 foot. But yeah, generally anything above 10'6", you're in kind of that first dunk of the dribble territory. And I do see this quite often where people can touch, well above that height, but they can't flush a dunk down. And then that goes back to what you're saying before. They maybe they're just trying to grab the ring and then they don't even worry about the ball. Well, in that case, there's no chance the ball's going to go in because you're just going to grab the ring. The ball's going to go somewhere else. But sometimes it's just a case of like they just haven't finished enough dunks. And like you said, it's a skill. So the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Obviously, making sure it's good practice. But a lot of the time I'll see someone make their first dunk, whether it's off the dribble, off the lob, whatever, and then they start making it really consistently that same day. And maybe it's a confidence thing, but it's also a case of, just seeing one go down and feeling the sensation of what it's like to flush a dunk. That's very important. So you guys will find once you utilize all the tips we're giving you, you hit that first dunk off the dribble, off the lob, whatever, the next ones are going to come a lot easier.
No, for sure. The best way I would say if you're trying to dunk off the dribble off 1 foot for the first time, you want to use a one hand pickup technique. So that's where you're kind of holding the ball underneath it and you have your other arm free so you can get that extra arm swing and it gives you extra pop on the takeoff and you might get an inch higher than you would if you were trying to do it like to where you're using both hands and swinging it up. And you'll see people like Kyrie Irving do this really well. It looks quite stylish, and it's just going to give you that extra arm swing. Which, if you're trying to hit your first dunk, you need everything you can get, and that's going to be the absolute best way. You can go up with two hands, or you can go up with one hand. That's going to be the best way off 1 foot. Off 2 foot, how would someone go about this off 2 foot? What's the exact method and the easiest method, Tom?
So yeah, it doesn't matter if you're left, right, left. The same principle applies. Now it will vary if you're dunking with the same hand that you plant with. So for me, for example, I'm a right hand dominant dunker. I dunk right, left. So you would keep your left hand slightly more under the ball. If you guys are watching the video, kind of like that, left hand slightly under, right hand on top, and you're going to bring it down slightly to the side, but more in front of you. Some people will prefer to, bring the ball below their knees, like people who really like to exaggerate their off the dribble. Good example is Brody Stevens. Now, I don't bring it as low as he does, but I still bring it down. And as you push up, you really got to use that off hand. So the hand you're not dunking with to generate a lot of the force, a lot of the momentum. And then as late as you can, let go with the offhand and then try and dunk it with your dominant hand.
100%. So for a technique, dunking off the lob, whether it's 1 foot, 2 foot, it doesn't matter. The same kind of things are going to apply. You want to lob the ball, wait at least 1 second, and then you go and attack the rim. Very often people mistime their jump with the lob. This is how you don't and avoid mistiming it is through waiting a second, like lobbing it, waiting a second, and then attacking the rim. Now, in terms of where you should lob the ball, you kind of almost want to imagine you're trying to score the ball into the rim off the bounce. So you lob it, the ball bounces, and after the ball bounces, you almost want to lob it to where you're trying to get the ball to land inside the rim. what that's going to do is it's going to cue you to lob the ball far enough forward and also close enough to the rim and also slightly above the rim as well. You want the ball in that exact position because that's going to be the easiest position for you to jump up, grab it with one hand, and push it down. You want to avoid lobbing it too far away from the rim. You want to avoid lobbing it lower than the rim because it's going to be very awkward to try and catch the ball, and you're never going to hit your first dunk that way. So whether it's 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, if you're one of those guys,
That's you,
you want
bro.
to lob it in that particular way. Now, with lobbing as well, you're just using a basic shooting action, how you would shoot a basketball works best.
Yep.
And sometimes putting a little bit of, I guess that's more for trick dunks, but like for hitting a one hander, wouldn't you say, Tom, like putting a little bit of backspin on it too helps. So then when the ball rises up, stays in the same position, it's easier to catch.
Yeah, I was about to say that. A common thing, first of all, I see people lob it way too low. Whether that's the case, they haven't thrown it high enough or their ball's not pumped up enough, that's going to depend. Generally, you want a decently pumped ball. Like Austin said, you want it to kind of almost sit in the rim. So all you need to do is flick your wrist down and you're really wasting no inches of vertical because, again, we're going for our first dunk. We probably don't have the most amount of vertical to play with at this point in time. Obviously, when you're doing trick dunks, whatever, you're not throwing it there, but that's a story for another time. And yeah, a bit of backspin can definitely go a long way. You got to think about it like this. You lob them from, let's say, the 3-point line, roughly around there. The ball's traveling horizontally, and say there was no spin on the ball, it's going to bounce and it's going to keep going forward. But if you have a bit of backspin on it, it almost counteracts and it reverses, and it's more likely just to shoot straight up. There might still be a little bit of forward travel, which is okay. But if you can kind of find that sweet spot where it can just hit the floor, shoot straight up, and all you need to worry about is putting the dunk down, that will be the most optimal situation to give yourself the best chance to hit your first dunk.
100%. And you want to make sure you're practicing dunking, practicing these things we're talking about at least once a week. 2 times is better because if you're not doing this, nothing else is going to matter because as you're probably hearing, dunking is quite a skill. You need to learn the timing. You need to learn when to dribble, where to lob, all that sort of stuff. You need to spend time figuring all this stuff out. If you're not practicing it, it's going to take years for you to hit your first dunk because you're just not getting enough reps under your belt. So that's step one. Make sure you're dunking at least once a week and you're spending an hour or so practicing this. Next thing is getting in the weight room and getting stronger. Why is this important, Tom? Why can't someone just jump and do plyometrics? Why does someone need to get in the weight room and get stronger?
Well, they can do that. They can just jump and they can just do plyometrics. And we've probably talked about this a lot. There's a lot of jumpers who literally just jumped and they got their vertical up a lot. But of course, like everything, there's diminishing returns and you only be able to ride that wave for a certain amount of time. But if you want to get the best results, if you combine strength training, plyometrics, actually jumping consistently, you'll gain faster than your body could otherwise, rather than just, just jumping or just doing plyos. This is a way to supercharge your vertical jump, supercharge your gains. And to be honest, it's really a no-brainer unless you're like 12 years old. But even then, it's a case to do lifting, maybe more higher rep stuff with like dumbbells, whatever. It's still a case there because at the end of the day, force strength is very important in the force equation, right? So yeah, get strong in the weight room. I guarantee if you listen to this podcast, I would say 99.9% of people aren't strong enough. I can't say 100 because, some powerlifter or whatever might be listening. You're probably not strong enough. So get in the weight room, give yourself the best chance of jumping higher.
100%. And just use simple exercises. Get your squat up. Make sure you're in a upright position. Your heels are elevated. You're using your quadriceps. Get your deadlift up. Get your calf raises up. Train your calves heavy. Do isolation exercises for your hamstrings, your glutes, quads as well. Also, don't skip out on your upper body. Your upper body plays a pivotal role in arm swing and arm swing power and also dunking power as well. If you don't want to end up dunking like a fairy and you want to end up dunking like a beast and punching it hard, train your upper body so you can improve the amount of force you're producing there and get a more powerful arm swing. So train your lats, train your shoulders, train your upper back. They're going to be responsible for that. Okay, so the next thing is you're practicing the technique, you're getting stronger, but you also need to get faster as well. You need to get more explosive. It's not enough to have good technique and improve how much force you're producing. You also need to do it fast as well. So how do we do this? Through doing things like sprinting and plyometrics. Those two things alone. And if you want to tie it in and add some icing to the cake, you can include power work like power cleans and stuff like that too. But the main things that are going to move the needle are things like sprinting and plyometrics. So why does someone need to sprint, Tom? Why should someone prioritize sprinting?
So yeah, for those new people that are listening to this podcast and haven't heard us talk about this kind of topic before, sprinting is the fastest thing a human can do in terms of ground contact. Nothing compares to it. So, any plyometric you can think of, any weird, exercise in the gym that you can think of, nothing will have a shorter ground contact time than sprinting. And I'm talking about like upright full max sprinting. So it's just a stimuli you cannot get anywhere else. And yeah, it's just almost a non-negotiable in training, aside from injury. That's really the only case where I wouldn't want someone to be sprinting year round. It's not really something you need to necessarily take out of your training, especially if you're a slower guy. If you're naturally quite slow, you get off the floor slow, these are going to be the highest priority for you. Even more so than strength work. There's definitely a case for it.
And it actually stresses your body. It's gonna you're gonna
It's
get
hard, yeah.
adaptations to it's hard,
Mm,
everything is meant to feel hard. Like it's meant to feel like it's stressing your body. If it doesn't feel like it's stressing your body's not gonna change. Your body's an organism, and in order for it to adapt over time, it needs to undergo stress, because otherwise you're not sending any signals to it to change. So you want to avoid, all the fluffy power exercises you see on Instagram and social media. Like, we're giving you the source here. These are the things that work and have helped our athletes add like 3 to 8+ inches to their verticals over time, and like completely transform their athleticism. Like, I've added 15, 20 inches to my vertical doing these things. Tom has added 15, 20 inches plus to his vertical doing these things. He jumps 48 inches. Jordan as well. These things have helped him become the greatest dunker of all time. And these things work. And if you want help from us and you want coaching from us, there's a link down below. But getting back to sprinting, you want to do varying distances and build it up over time. You don't rush into it. Start shorter distances and then build up to doing longer distances over
mm,
time. In terms of the plyometrics that work and will get you results, things like depth jumps, things like single leg bounds, things like single leg hopping, pogo jumps are amazing as well. And obviously, all these things, they're quite intense and will move the needle. But in order to avoid injury, you might need to start off a little bit easier and start off with easier variations and regressions of these. You might need to not go full effort with these things right away. You might need to start a little bit slower, and you're still going to get results from them, and then build up the intensity of these things over
yeah.
time. So then you don't
Just
end up
so
getting knee pain and Achilles pain and all that sort of stuff. And if you want help to ensure you're doing this properly, we can help you out. But if not, just to keep it simple for now, just don't go full effort on these things right away. Just first week, maybe go 50% and then add 10% effort each week to where you get to 100%. It's probably the simplest way we can break it down for you guys on this podcast without getting too complicated with things, I guess. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
well, yeah, I was just gonna say you can still get the benefits of plyometrics, not doing full effort, especially with more extensive stuff. Like Austin said, yeah, start at 50%. It's not like you're getting nothing from it. You're still getting adaptations from it. And I'd argue you could actually get more adaptation from it rather than chucking yourself in the deep end. Because you go and do max plyos, you've never done plyos before, there's a chance you get injured. There's a high chance you might get injured. So, you get injured, you're probably going to progress less. Yeah, you'd rather go slower and then build your way into it than try and be a hero and go 0 to 100.
100%. So we've covered technique, we've covered jumping, we've covered getting stronger, we've covered getting faster. What about more flexible? What about more mobile? The
Mm,
caveat with this doesn't really apply too much. If you're a 1 foot guy, you don't really need to get more mobile, more flexible. It's not really going to do much, being completely honest and keeping it real with you guys. But for a 2 foot jumper, if you lack flexibility through your hips and ankles, that can actually inhibit you. And that's something you need to work on as well. So doing some ankle mobility exercises, doing some hip flexibility exercises can help. Now, why shouldn't someone take this too far, Tom? What can happen?
I wouldn't want to. I won't say you lose your athleticism, but this is a situation where more is not merrier and more is not better. You really want to just be able to make sure you can get into the positions that are going to allow you to perform. Obviously jumping. So we're talking about 2 foot jumping here, getting into, a nice, decently long penultimate. Being able to block properly, internally rotate. Obviously, it's going to vary person to person. Some people have different shaped hips, and they're shaped a bit differently. But in general, as long as you're getting into positions, obviously the gym as well, being able to squat deep and all that, that's all you really need. Anything other than that, maybe a little bit more is, beneficial for health, maybe, but it's not going to help your athleticism. And for 1 foot jumping, even less so. You don't want to be super elastic, super mobile for 1 foot jumping. Like, I'd probably say the thing that you need to have the most mobile for 1 foot jumping would be hips and hamstrings. But like ankle mobility doesn't need to be crazy. Obviously, you want it all right because you still want to be able to perform exercise in the gym. But yeah, you don't need to be like a ballerina or some, health guru, doing the splits, no warm up, nothing like that.
100%. So if you follow these steps that we went through in this podcast and you do them well and you execute them consistently with a high intent and you train hard, you will hit your first dunk sooner than you think. Now, different people progress at different rates, but these are the things that work. These are the things that have stood the test of time. These are the things that have had some of our athletes hitting their first dunk within 30 days. Some of our athletes it took a little bit longer. Some guys have completely transformed their athleticism doing these things. And yeah, if you do these things, you're going to become an athletic beast. So we hope this podcast helped you out. And that's exactly how you should be training to hit your first dunk. Anything else is just extra fluff. It's a BS. Get it done.
Perfect.